He wasn't just handsome, he was dangerously so, the kind of man whose presence rearranges the room without effort. From the moment he stepped into the classroom, everything else faded. He was tall, impeccably composed, his features sharp yet warm, his eyes calm and knowing, his voice low and steady, the kind that made silence feel meaningful. I admired everything about him, obsessively, irrationally. The way he adjusted his sleeves, the way he paused before answering a question, the restraint he carried like a signature. To me, he was perfection walking, and I was a girl still bleeding from a loss I didn't know how to name. My father's death hollowed the house. It didn't just take him, it took the sound of certainty, the feeling of protection. My mother survived in a way that felt like betrayal. She didn't fall apart, she didn't scream. She stood tall, quiet, functional, and I hated her for it. I needed her broken beside me, not strong ahead of me. And in the same school where she taught, he taught me, watching me with an attention I mistook for something meant only for me. He never crossed a line, not once. And that was what ruined me. He noticed my silences, praised my writing, told me I carried depth beyond my years. Once, he said I wrote like someone trying to survive, and that sentence rooted itself inside me like a secret bond. I convinced myself we shared something unspoken, something restrained by time and morality. I fed on glances, on brief conversations, on his respectful distance, turning every neutral act into proof of hidden love. What I couldn't ignore was my mother. The way her expression softened when his name was mentioned, the calm in her eyes when she passed him in the hallway. I felt a jealousy so sharp it scared me. I hated her for reasons I couldn't admit aloud, and I hated myself even more for competing with my own mother in my imagination. By the time I turned 20, the weight of my feelings became unbearable. I needed certainty, even if it destroyed me. I confessed everything, standing in front of him with shaking hands and a heart exposed beyond dignity. He listened patiently, his handsome face unreadable, and when he spoke, his words were gentle enough to devastate me. He said he loved me, but only as a daughter, that my feelings were born from grief, not love. And then he said the sentence that split my world in two. He was in love with my mother, and he planned to marry her. Hatred became my refuge. I hated him for never seeing me as a woman. I hated her for being chosen without trying. I withdrew into myself, turned cold, sharp, unreachable. And when I entered university, I carried my anger like armor, convinced that love was a weakness I could no longer afford. That was when I met him. He was handsome too, striking in a different way. Openly confident, unapologetically present. His smile was easy, his laughter loud, his gaze direct. There were no emotional riddles, no silence to decode. He spoke to me as an equal, not as someone fragile or unfinished. I resisted him at first, terrified of repeating myself, but he stayed. He stayed when I failed exams, when I pushed him away, when my past spilled out in fragments. He once told me I was strong but exhausted, and that he didn't want to fix me, only to love me. For the first time, love felt steady instead of dizzy. Our relationship wasn't effortless. We faced doubt, opposition, my fear of being second choice again, but he never disappeared. His love was visible, loud in its consistency, and slowly, without realizing it, I healed. I forgave my mother in silence long before I spoke it. I forgave the man who had once defined my idea of love by realizing he was never meant to. When we decided to marry, I wanted a celebration, not for appearances, but as a declaration to myself that I had survived. I invited everyone, including my mother, including my former teacher. I told myself I was ready for closure. On the night of the party, I was radiant, laughing, alive, until I saw them walk in together. Not as colleagues, not as acquaintances, but as husband and wife. Her ring caught the light, his hand rested comfortably on her back. No explanation was needed. Time stopped. Memories surged. Jealousy flared. But what followed wasn't pain, it was clarity. I didn't collapse, I didn't scream. I looked at them, then at my husband standing beside me, holding my hand firmly, choosing me without hesitation, and I understood everything at once. What I once called love was a wound looking for shelter. What I called betrayal was simply a life that was never mine. I hugged my mother and cried without resentment for the first time, and when I looked at him, he was no longer the man I adored, only a handsome figure who passed through my story but never owned it. My hero was already beside me, and that night, the girl who mistook longing for love finally disappeared, leaving behind a woman who knew that real love doesn't confuse you, it anchors you.